Think America Radio and thinkamericaradio.com and talk about something that is on many Americans' minds. I was reading from a new poll that talked about whether or not Americans really like it when our new president goes to Twitter, of all things, to get information out. And the poll stated that nearly 70% of Americans actually give a thumbs down on this tweeting habit of his and are particularly concerned when he does it in the middle of the night because it seems very impulsive and it has dangerous and lasting negative implications, or at least it could. Now, I'm too busy to tweet every one of my thoughts, everything that's heavy on my heart. I like email better. I mean, we've got all these social media ways, these media ways to get information out. And I certainly need my beauty rest. So the idea that we've got a president that's doing this a lot, my particular take is I don't mind it so much until he gets a little reckless. So I've invited a media consultant, a media and communications expert to come on the program to talk about, is this something that we should be concerned with when our president does this too much? And it does seem like he's doing it too much. Chrysta Castañeda is a media and communications expert. She specializes in this, among other issues. Welcome to the show, Chrysta. Welcome to Think America, Think America Radio. Hello.
Hello. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nice to have you on board. So, in a nutshell, should Trump cool it on the Twitter or not?
Well, certainly when he is calling out particular companies and particular individuals and raining scorn down on them, I mean, it negatively impacts the stock market and negatively impacts, the perception of the judiciary. Those are not good things for a president to be doing, generally speaking.
So thumbs down on that.
Yes.
All right. And is that because you would say, Chrysta, it's not presidential? He should let his surrogates do those things, but he should rise above it?
Three things. First of all, it's not very effective in advocating for his policy because 140 characters is not a very sophisticated way to get a message across. Second thing is it's really problematic. There are now automated stock market programs that can listen for his tweets and figure out whether or not they're bad for a company and immediately short that stock within nanoseconds. So he can actually move markets and people can do what, we have all these laws to prevent illegal securities trading.
Sure, and short selling and things like that.
Yeah, and then the third thing is yes, I think it does seem unseemly and unpresidential. On the one hand, the people who voted for him like having that personal connection with him, but on the other hand, it kind of diminishes the presidential office.
Well, I kind of think so, too, because it's too much. Too much of a good thing becomes a bad thing. It can sour on you. Back to the automation and how stock markets are tied. It seems to me when he does this in the middle of the night, he's not really doing it at all. I saw an interview on the O'Reilly Factor where he was saying to Bill O'Reilly on Fox, he said, I sleep about 4 to 5 hours a night. He gets up at 5:30 in the morning and sometimes goes to bed 1:30 or even 12:30 just after midnight. And, this is not something that is sustainable. I know he doesn't drink and he doesn't smoke. This I know. And he looks pretty fit and full of energy. But still, 4 hours of sleep, I don't quite buy it. And if he is getting his 4 hours of sleep only, if that is the case, getting up at 3:30 in the morning to tweet something, my guess, Chrysta, is that he too is automated or has surrogates clicking and sending it out by way of tweets when he's snoring.
Well, certainly it's a possibility that he's got other administrators on his account who are putting out tweets that he's instructed be put out or that they've thought of on their own with his permission.
I'm not there. I'm not in the White House. And I'm certainly not in his bedroom, so I don't know how much sleep he's getting. It just strikes me that that's one of the things that Americans do not like. It's fine maybe if you tweet a little bit, but 70% of Americans thinking that sending out a tweet without careful review and at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're supposed to be sleeping, I would guess that didn't have a lot of careful review. Back to the understanding of it not being, of it being unpresidential. I would think he, in time, would rise above this and sort of settle into the job. I think he wants to manifest to everybody. He's really working hard and going a mile a minute, and he's serious about it. All that, I think, is good. But do you think he's going to wane from this as soon as he sort of settles into the job more?
I do think so. I share your view on this because I think he's already starting to experience some of the backlash from it. For example, on the travel ban, if you call it a ban, some of his statements on Twitter and elsewhere were used against the administration in court when Washington is opposing the ban and seeking to have an injunction to keep it from going forward. So, his own personal statements will be used against him.
Let's go to your first point. I thought it was very astute. Is it effective? Well, I'm of mixed feelings on that, and I want your take. Sometimes I think it is very difficult to take a vexing issue, any kind of subject matter or an emotion, and reduce it to 140 characters. That takes pretty good writing. And on the other hand, and this is why I'm mixed, sometimes things can't be reduced to 140 characters. So on the one hand, I kind of applaud him for the ability to do that because he does get his point across in 140 characters effectively. For example, with Ivanka Trump and the Nordstrom thumbs down on her clothing line, he went out and defended his daughter and did it effectively with Nordstrom's. On the other hand, you've got pretty complex matters that can't be reduced to that kind of a tweeting soundbite. Your take?
I agree with you. And it's interesting when you think about the first example, his parental defense of his daughter, that's more in the line of something that's not a presidential issue or a governmental issue, as you can see, as opposed to the more complex issues where, you've got a lot of competing concerns. That's why government's so complicated and so difficult, and we don't agree on things. If it's something that pertains to the presidency, 140 characters is going to be really difficult to use to get that whole agenda across.
And, of course, he can't usually, so he does another 140 characters, then another 140 characters. Pretty soon there's 6, 7, a dozen 140 characters to get the message across, and it's overkill. I want to move on. It seems to me that the reason why at first a lot of Americans loved this idea of the president tweeting is that he was contemporary. This is trending. This is here to stay, it appears. And because he kept saying that he, and most of us could agree, those that voted for him, can't trust the news media. So therefore, the idea is get it from the horse's mouth. I think that's on the upside for him. What do you think?
Well, it certainly is to, the people who like him, quite refreshing that he speaks his mind in an unfettered way. You're not hearing his words through reporters and editors and, something that's been, gone over and carefully masked and then maybe repeated in ways that he didn't intend. So I think the people who want that connection with him find that very satisfying. On the other hand, he has created so much new business for traditional media. The reports are that, they're selling newspapers and news subscribers like hotcakes as a result of everything that he's doing outside the traditional media. So it's just fascinating. We've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah, it's kind of a two-edged sword, or love him and hate him at the same time, whatever phraseology you want. We're down to about 40-some seconds or so, and I'll give you the last word. You can also find Chrysta Castañeda at CanterburyCommunications.com. Chrysta, if you were advising him, what would you tell him? Get
your messages straight with where you want your policy to move. When you're talking about presidential actions, do enough fact assessment, have enough discipline, get your talking points together well enough to, when you use those 140 characters, that's the thing you actually want to live with.
Yeah, and maybe I would add, if you're going to do the 140 characters, just do it with personal business. Leave your surrogates and your press people to do the more vexing, complicated international and national matters, because after all, you're the president. Thank you, Chrysta, for being on the program. All right, we'll be back right after this.